All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. It is November 10th, 2025. This is a meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton, New Jersey. Could we have the meeting statement, please?
Notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act and state regulations governing public meetings, including the time, date, and location of the meeting, and clear and concise instructions to the public for assessing the meeting and making comments. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. Brian's going to do the land acknowledgement tonight.
We gather today on the land of the Lenni Lenape. As members of the Princeton community, we aspire to show appreciation, respect, and concern for all peoples and our environment. We honor the Lenape and other indigenous caretakers of these lands and waters, the elders who lived here before, the indigenous today, and the generations to come.
Thank you. We have roll call, please.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Sachs?
Here.
Ms. Fraga?
Here.
Mr. Newland?
Here.
Mayor Frater?
Here. Thank you. All right, if you're able and want to join us, please stand. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, one quick thing to note for everybody that's listening and that's here. Tomorrow is a holiday. We are closed. So if you try to call here, you will not get an answer. Call Wednesday. And also for everybody up here, don't call anybody here tomorrow. Leave them alone. It's a holiday. All right. Thank you. We have 4 sets of minutes. Move them in block. Thank you, Leticia. Is there a second to that? Thank you, Brian. Just make sure no questions or comments on any of those. All right. Everybody in favor of all 4, please say aye.
Aye.
There we go. Council announcements or reports? Leticia.
Yes, on behalf of the Human Services Department, for those who aren't already aware, I want to announce that there are currently, they have already begun the holiday gift drive for this year. This will mark the 27th year that Human Services has been conducting this. Last year, we had 350 applications from children from ages up to 12 years of age who participated, and this year we expect just as many, if not more. So encourage everyone to please, who's in the given mood, to contact Human Services to sign up. But also this is a call for families who have children 12 and under who wish to apply on behalf of their children. Also contact Human Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council announcements or reports? Oh, Leighton.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. Excuse me. On behalf of the mayor, Councilman Cohen, and myself, Jeff Grosser, and the group, the steering group working on short-term rentals, we'll be giving a thorough upgrade at our next meeting. We are continuing to evaluate a couple of our options and continuing to get both community and council input on it, so please stand by for that. Also, I would like to share from Adam Welch at the Arts Council, and also want to acknowledge Councilwoman Leticia Fraga for attending the event this weekend. The Arts Council of Princeton's 31st annual Sauce for the Goose Art Market took place this past Saturday on Paul Robeson Place, right in front of the Arts Council. The event was a huge success, drawing more than 6,000 attendees and featuring over 100 vendors. It was an energetic and creative day that truly showcased our community's vibrant art scene. And I just want to add, you know, as a person who was there, they sold no drinks and no food in all of the tents that were positioned between the Arts Council, the Paul Robeson at Witherspoon Street, and the church at John Street. Tents filled on both sides, no food and no drink. And I could see, and I watched, and I actually have video of the streams of people that left the event and headed right into town to spend money. So I just want people to know, the Arts Council churns, and the events that they have are beneficial to the community. Just got one more thing I want to add. Thank you. Looking ahead, the Winter Village on Hines Plaza opens this Friday, November 13th, and will run through December 21st. The festive market offers a wonderful opportunity to shop local and celebrate the season. And lastly, on Wednesday, November 20th, the Arts Council will host a monthly story in verse in the Sully Theater. This series provides a warm and welcoming spotlight for both emerging and established artists to share their stories, poetry, or prose inspired by the monthly theme. It is an intimate and inspiring event in the heart of downtown Princeton. Thank you.
Thanks, Leighton. Any other announcements or reports up here? Okay, nothing down there. All right, we have a presentation. We are going to hear about the Westminster Choir College planning update.
Good evening, everyone.
You need to be right up against the
I
mic.
heard, eat the mic. Okay. How's that?
Very good.
Good? All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Chris Colley. I'm a planner with the firm Topology. We are the folks that the municipality has hired to assist in the planning process with Westminster Choir College. So excited to be here. I'm going to start a timer so I don't go too long. Thanks for having me, council, mayor, public, and everyone. So really, I'm here this evening to give an update on the status of our work. And I wanted to start that update by explaining what exactly it is we've been hired to do and sort of where we stand in that process. So we've been hired for really a 4-step process. We're somewhere in the second phase right now. For the first phase, we really wanted to sort of establish a clearer project plan. We're in a second phase, which I'm going to sort of present to you some of the findings from where we're working to develop a project vision that's sort of informed by the characteristics of the site as well as a series of objectives. And then in the future, we're going to be developing a few different alternatives, having an engagement process around that, and hopefully ultimately coming together with a preferred alternative. So really tonight we're talking about this second phase, and there's 2 phases of my presentation. The first one is about the characteristics of the site, and the second one is about some design parameters and objectives that we've worked to put together. So some of this is going to be well known to folks publicly who live here, so I'll be brief on that. But if you don't know, Westminster Choir College campus is about a 23-acre piece of property that the municipality purchased, and it sits at kind of an interesting location in town, surrounded on most sides by residential neighborhood, but also critically by the schools along the north, and then sort of at a center point between 3 commercial areas in town, the 3 main commercial sections of town. And one really fun part of the work that we've been able to do to date has been sort of digging into the history around the property, and that includes finding old pictures that we were able to get through a writer, but also sort of learning about the evolution of the site. And I will just sort of flag what we're looking on the right there. That's a subdivision plan from the 60s, and what's interesting, if you know the property now, is you'll see Franklin Avenue on the south side here going straight through the campus, and of course that now does not go straight through, and that's sort of an interesting old wrinkle on the property. So, we've been learning as much as we can about the history of the property. Talking about the site today and the work that we've been tasked with, it's a big property, right? So to sort of help you understand what 25 acres looks like, if you hear, 5 acres, 10 acres thrown out there, we've created a couple graphics to help understand that, and those will be part of the presentation that we can circulate afterwards. Critically important to the planning process here is an understanding of the buildings that are on site. This is not a, fresh piece of land. There's at least 16 structures on the property, and we've been spending a lot of time sort of developing an understanding of them. To sort of put them into 4 groups, there's a group of buildings that center around what we're calling the historic quad, which if you've been on the site, you'll know what we're talking about, and you sort of see 3 of those up on there now. These are buildings from the 20s that were part of the original campus. You've got another group of buildings which are really sort of associated with like the very specific history of the site as the home of Westminster Choir College, being a place that was a music school, right? So you've got a chapel, you've got the playhouse, you've got a library, and you've got a very specialized performance center. I'll just flag for this, the top 2 ones on there, the chapel and the playhouse, these are the buildings that were part of the McCarter EDA application that the council considered a couple months ago. And then, of course, you got dorms, right? There's a few dorms on the site, which are located on the northern port. So if we sort of take a step back and think about the different sub-areas on the property and how we might start to break this thing down, like we see this site in, I don't know, six groups or so. There's obviously the big historic lawn that sits at the front of the property. There's the historic quad, which has that first set of buildings I showed. There's more of like a performance quad. There's a residential quad. And then there are 3 really sort of interesting other areas. There's a really interesting transition up against Linden Lane here, which we think needs sort of special consideration. There's a parking area. And then up in the northwest, there's an area which we're calling the field. And the reason why we're calling it that is because it has kind of an interesting environmental characteristic, which is there's a wetland there. So there's a designated wetland up here in the northern portion of the property. One of the things we've been doing, working with city staff or municipal staff, is to evaluate that wetland and understand what it might mean for the constraints of the site. So that's a really important topographical feature out there. Other sorts of topographical features worth noting, if you've been to the site, you know there's quite a bit of slope. So the site slopes downward to Hamilton Avenue and then northward up to Franklin. I mentioned the importance of that wetland in terms of sort of the next phase of our work, which is how the site's going to lay out. If we start to think about how different uses might fit on the site, that wetland is situated in an area that will sort of certainly influence our future design work. I won't get too much into the circulation analysis that we've conducted, except to say that I showed you that subdivision plan earlier because I think it really matters. The way Franklin comes through the site has created these couple of really challenging intersections. And those are certainly things that we'll have to consider as we move to the next phase of work. And I'll just say, by way of close for this portion of the slides, there's a lot of trees on site. So we've been working with the municipal arborists to evaluate those, and they've done a great job, and thanks to them for that. So that was a lot to go through in 6 minutes, but we're considering a lot about the characteristics of the site, and that has to inform really the objectives, which I think are critical, and we'll go through here. So in order to sort of get a sense for what the desired uses and design might be here, we've done some talking to folks. We've been out at a couple community events. We had a survey, just a one-question survey over the summer. We've met with municipal staff. We met with the schools. We met with a variety of different people. And really, we're just trying to sort of generate ideas for what subsequent phases of work might be. And I just want to be absolutely clear, if you hear one thing from me tonight, make it this. There's certainly more engagement to come on this process. So we're not having a one-question survey and then we're going to disappear for a year and do design. So, okay. So that said, we have learned a lot, right, from folks. And I did want to share the answers that we got from that one-question survey. When you ask people an open-ended question, it does make it hard to come to a council meeting and present the answers because there's a variety of them, but we tried to sort of identify what the big themes were in our responses. So we identified 5. We got 672 responses. So 1, to promote arts and culture and music. 2, to support recreation, open space, community uses. 3, 122 responses to support creation of housing opportunities. 4, to support the Princeton Public Schools. And 5, to retain the historic fabric of the Westminster Choir College. So those were really sort of the key themes that we saw in those responses. And what we tried to do, and it's really important for our next phase of work, is take what we heard and what we learned and create like a set of objectives or rules that will inform our next phase of work. So I won't read all of these, but I'll hit what I think are the most important ones. To retain like the key sites on the property, which we see as the historic quad, the Cullen Center, and the Playhouse at least, to make sure that we retain sort of the core, at least, of that lawn area along Hamilton, to be respectful of finances, to allocate something for the schools, to include open space, to include uses for arts and culture throughout the property, whether for McCarter or Westminster Conservatory or other users, to address municipal facilities, to respect those buffers with the neighbors, to respect the trees on site, and to sort of create flexible areas for use by a variety of organizations. Those are the parameters that we'd like to sort of craft our scenarios around. In terms of like next steps and where we'll be going from here, like we'd like to continue having conversations with potential site users, especially on the public side. And we'd really like to begin to move to developing concepts, loose concepts, scenarios of how the site might lay out. So I said 10 minutes. I'm at 9:42, so I must have spoken a little too quickly, but thank you for listening. And that concludes my update. Appreciate it.
Okay. I got a couple questions.
Sure.
You want me talking to the mic? I do. Okay. Deanna, maybe more for you than for Chris. But for the wetlands, can we buy our way out of the wetlands? Can we put money into a fund for somewhere else I know, anyway.
We are looking at all of our options at this point, talking with DEP to see what is possible.
Right, because it's kind of, I mean, I get it, the area's always been wet, so to speak, but it's always been mowed. It's not like nobody would walk by and say, boy, that's an obvious wetlands. Most people would go by and say, oh, okay, there's a little slope there and the water collects there. But anyway, okay, so I hope we could do that. A couple of the objectives might conflict with each other, obviously. Preserving the historic quad versus being financially feasible. So the one building there, Taylor Hall, it has a very significant price tag to bring that back to usable shape. So at some point, this body's going to have to talk about which of the objectives are the objectives that are really going to be the final objectives. I understand we gathered a lot. And then at some point, we'll need to talk about also what are the actual municipal needs on that property. But anyway, you're about to get into next steps, but I just wanted to make sure that we're all thinking about those things, because I think those are things that need more discussion. Anyway, Mia.
I just want to say, if anyone thought that Chris was too brief, I did tell him that at the 10-minute mark, he gets gonged by the mayor. So he stopped very quickly. And also, to your point about the historic quad, there has been very strong sentiment expressed by the Westminster Choir College Foundation and by historic preservation advocates in the community for preserving the historic quad. There has been a lot of sentiment in the community in support of that. To your point, the price tag is potentially staggering.
Yeah.
And that is why, following Chris's presentation tonight, we have someone who is going to present to us, without a price tag for now, what is involved with evaluating how much it costs to bring those buildings up to just, code. I will say there are so few bathrooms on the site. It makes one wonder what people used to do in that regard. But there is a lot of work that needs to be done to stabilize those buildings and just to make them safe. And that's what we're going to hear afterward, just to place it in a context.
Other questions or comments for Chris? Brian?
I just first wanted to start out by thanking Chris and any members of his team who've worked on this, as well as the council members who've been working on this. I thought that was one of the best 9-minute and 50-second presentations I've seen here. I just want to say I agree with the mayor that I think it's going to be very challenging to optimize for all 15 of those objectives, and think we're going to have some good conversations about them. And I also was very pleased to see that there will be additional community engagement as part of the process. Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to respond to both the mayor and to Brian by saying that the concepts, alternative concepts that topology is going to develop will be partly to flush out the priorities, right? So one concept may optimize 5 of the goals. Another concept may optimize a different 8 goals. And as we talk through the different options, that will help to sort through all that.
Oh, Leighton.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm feeling like I don't really have a problem with the goals right now being lofty. Like 15 is a large number, but we can always whittle it down. But I think I want to say that I appreciate that you didn't leave it at a minimalistic viewpoint, because there's still a lot of input. There's a lot of land there. There's a lot of options. There's a lot of possibilities. And as we can see by the responses, a great many people seem to be in groups around community-based development, art, music, and open space. So that leaves a lot of openings that you can choose from. So, we'll whittle it down, but like I don't have a problem with it being big right now. Let's take a big look and come out with a great plan. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there'll be pressure to whittle it down pretty quickly once people see the impact that the purchase of the property has in the tax bills in 2026. So we'll probably be pressuring you to move
Okay.
quickly and come back with as much as you can, as quick as you can, because we're going to have to make some tough decisions before too long. But anyway.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hopefully that will come
Hi.
up. The screen seems to be a little small.
You're going to need to keep that microphone close to you.
I'll get the screen a little bigger. For some reason
Yeah, it's turned on. It's just not.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Annabelle Radcliffe-Trenner. I am a preservation architect. I live in Princeton, I'm glad to say, and I've come here really today just to tell you a little bit about our firm and who we are, because I felt, Chris felt that was an important part of what I should do. So I have 5 minutes, which is less than Chris, to tell you about 35 years of practice as a preservation architect. So I'm not going to even try to do that. But I think the purpose today is not actually to really discuss this project. I don't think we're ready to do that, but just to introduce you to our company and who we are. The firm is called Historic Building Architects. We are a small firm. We're based in Trenton. We moved to Trenton because we believe in inner cities and we want to preserve them. We have 2 licensed architects, myself and Bonner, and we have material conservation skills in the office as well as a wonderful set of team of professionals, all very talented, and I love going to work every day because of them. So just to give you an idea of the sort of types of projects we do, our projects are all publicly used historic buildings. We do adapt them, we preserve them, but we primarily start with the planning process. So you can see from the project type by client, we have federal, state, county, private institutional, and a lot of municipality clients. We have projects that range the gamut of types of buildings, and most of these start with an assessment. We also have projects ranging from below 2 million, the blue, to fairly large projects over 10 million now. So give you an idea, we're very broad in terms of our skill sets. We also have a material conservation lab. We're the only ones in New Jersey who do, and that purpose is to understand the makeup of buildings, because one of the things we need to do, and we use technology to do that, is to understand what is causing the problem of deterioration. So our material conservation lab, which does mortar and masonry and cleaning, as well as paint analysis and other specialty areas, helps us to understand how materials are used, and results in, this is Stuart Hall, results in a very useful analysis and understanding of mortars and colored mortars, where they become very important in very significant historic buildings. And we have a mobile lab as well that we use. So this is Stuart Hall, which you probably all know. We did the entire exterior restoration of this, but we started with a condition assessment, and we started with a detailed budget of what needed to be done, and we used a lot of technology to do that, non-destructive evaluation, which involves infrared surveys, ground penetrating radars. This is a solid masonry building. It's just pre the sort of turn of the century. And one of our sort of expertise has been understanding buildings of the turn of the century, because they often have masonry exterior facades. A good example is Castle Hill here. It looks like a solid, nice solid masonry building like the one I just showed you at Stuart Hall. But actually it's a steel frame structure. And these are challenging buildings. You unfortunately have one of those challenging buildings. So we have to understand what's behind the skin. And in order to do that, we do pretty comprehensive assessments using non-destructive evaluation techniques. They're surface, but we get behind the skin, because we want to give you numbers that are accurate and know what you're dealing with in terms of materials. We use a lot of drone work, which gets us quick and efficient access, and then we can lay that out to give clear explanations to our clients about what is going on. This is an example of infrared in the bottom left corner, showing some of the steel construction. The darker colors, the cooler colors, tend to hold moisture. And this helps us to understand what we're dealing with in terms of the construction and behind the skin, because that's the expensive part. Preservation has got a bad rap for being expensive. It doesn't have to be expensive if you know what you've got, and you're not going to get surprises during construction, because that's when the expenses go up. So we try and mitigate that very early on in the assessment process. Just a sort of fun ending, this is the Crane estate. The Cranes were well known for their bathrooms. What some people don't know is that plumbing fixtures were also included downspouts. So rather than roofers doing downspouts, plumbers do downspouts. So understanding how buildings are thought of when they were built and put together when they were built is very important to understand the challenges that you might or might not have in the process. So I think that was really, I'm here for questions and hopefully some answers if you've got them about who we are.
Annabelle, I appreciate that Chris asked you to keep it to 5, but if you could just, I think even more importantly than the expertise that your firm brings, if you could explain to the public why it is important to have such a comprehensive evaluation and assessment of the condition of the buildings and how your firm provides that. And I will just say that the committee that's been working on this has done a lot of research to try to find who would be the consultant or group most best equipped to evaluate that. And we have Annabelle is one potential, Annabelle and her firm, are one potential consultant that we may work with. And I think, you know, to Mark's point about wherever we land with these buildings, it will be expensive. And I think, you know, what we have concluded preliminarily is that if you try to cut corners in the analysis of what's needed to restore the buildings, you may end up spending more in the long run. But if you could just describe more specifically why drones and infrared, et cetera, are actually necessary, and why we as a town might want to spend that sort of money, to why it is financially prudent for us to spend that sort of money on the front end.
Yeah, happy to do that. Visual observation is, of course, what most people do when they assess a building. But what we want to do is to not just visually look at it, but we want to find cause. Because unless we find the cause of the problem, you don't really have a good solution for its repair. So there's a sort of sequence of processing here. And one of the reasons we use drones is to get access to places that you would not otherwise be able to see, and complete a sort of really comprehensive, holistic assessment of particularly the exterior envelope, because that's where you're vulnerable. And these 1920s buildings, you cannot see steel that's corroding behind the walls. However, if you have infrared and ground-penetrating radar, you get a much better sense of what you're dealing with. So if we're seeing water on the exterior of a building, but we don't know where the steel is, we can find that out through the infrared because it'll show us the cooler areas of the steel. So understanding how the building is put together is really fundamental to causes of problems and then how you repair them. There may not be a problem, but there may be a problem. And I'd prefer you to know that in advance and have a comprehensive estimate that's accurate. Our estimates tend to come in with usually at the end of the project 2% change orders. So we're very tight on construction because we really know how the building is put together and its skin and behind the skin of what's going on. And that's really critical if you want to save money and you want to plan for these buildings.
I'm sorry, can you just speak to the condition of the one building in the historic quad, Taylor, that we mentioned, which unfortunately there was a flood, which resulted in black mold throughout, and I believe you felt more comfortable with hazmat professionals going in instead of your team, and so if you could just sort of speak to the situation with that building and what would be required to assess the situation there.
Right. So one of the first things we recommended was that we have, mold is a fear of everybody's, and whether it's black mold or what type of mold it is, we need to have a hazmat group assess that building first before we can determine whether we can go into the building. We're hoping that after the results of those tests that we'll find that it's not potentially as severe as people have anticipated. But we have to first do the assessment, and then with that assessment, we'll determine if we can go into the interior and complete our assessment work. We did this at Lennox House after the fire. We were able to go in after initial testing to find that we didn't have severe black mold, and we had less impactful, and we all wear masks, and we're all quite familiar with having to address that in many buildings that have moisture ingress. So I think we'll wait and see what the test results say. The exterior envelope we can obviously assess. It's more the interior and whether we've got a massive loss of fabric, which case, you know, the solution and the recommendation will obviously be swayed by those findings.
Brian?
Yes, this is all really interesting and impressive. Am I correct that the focus of your work would be on the 4 buildings in the historic quad and not other buildings?
That's correct. We're only going to be looking at the 4 1920s buildings because those are the ones that we were asked to review.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. All right, next up, we have a public hearing on ordinance 25-17, an ordinance by the Municipality of Princeton regulating parking and amending Chapter 19 of the Code of the Borough of Princeton, New Jersey, 1974. Would someone like to move that? Thank you, Leticia. David's got the second. Questions, comments? All right, none up here. Anybody in the room that wants to? I'm sorry? Brian?
So I just wanted to confirm that while this is an ordinance, that our intent is for this to be a pilot program that will be carefully monitored and evaluated. Is that right?
Yes. Yes, it's a pilot program.
Okay.
David, you want to talk a little bit about it?
Just to make people aware, this is an ordinance to remove on-street parking on Armour Road in order to make accommodation for advisory bike lanes, or I should call them bike pedestrian lanes, because the residents of Armour have been concerned about cut-through traffic and the safety of walking in the street. There are no sidewalks on the street, and this seemed to be sort of a solution to both of those issues, both traffic calming by having, I'm not going to go into the technicalities of what these advisory bike ped lanes are exactly, but they're a proven traffic calming measure, as well as providing dedicated space in the street for pedestrians and bicyclists to be, not competing with cars for real estate in the roadway.
Is that good? You good with that? I just want to make sure. All right. Anybody from the public in the room that has a question or comment on this ordinance? Anybody on Zoom? All right, no hands are up. We'll close the public hearing. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Sachs?
Yes.
Ms. Fraga?
Yes.
Mr. Newland?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Resolutions. Resolution 25-372, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing an increase of $20,000 to the extraordinary unspecifiable services agreement with R&D Consulting, LLC, for information technology support services for a new not-to-exceed amount of $85,000. Leighton has the motion. Is there a second? Thank you, Leticia. Questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Resolution 25373, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing a contract with Elite Vehicle Solutions for police vehicle upfitting for $155,876.29, utilizing the New Jersey State Contract 17-Fleet-00749. Leticia has the motion, David has the second. Questions or comments? Brian? Did you have your, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I saw your hand go. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 25374, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton opposing Williams Transco's Northeast Supply Enhancement Project, NESE. I know there's people from the public that wanted to speak about this, so let me just get a motion on it. Brian's got the motion, Mia's got the second. Thanks. And then, Alexi, I think you were first, Kit's up second, and then anybody else can join in. Let me just, again, no, stay there. Everybody has 3 minutes. A timer will theoretically go on behind me at some point. And I try not to be rude, but at that 3-minute mark, I am going to start coaching people to stop talking. Thank you.
Okay, I'll be quick. The first thing I want to tell you is you don't have to worry that if we manage to stop the pipeline, which is, we've had disappointing news. The water quality permits were granted on Friday. In 2020, they were denied with prejudice by both New York State and New Jersey. Most people think there was a deal
Try to speak right into that microphone, sorry.
that Governor Hochul made to open Empire Wind and allow some pipelines. But I just want to assure you that if we do manage to stop this pipeline, people in Long Island will still have natural gas. This is a play to bring natural gas to the Mid-Atlantic coast for export. And there's ample evidence from industry conferences and all to that, and I'm happy to share that if anybody's concerned about that. The other thing I'd like to tell you is that the issue for Princeton, if the pipeline does go through, is the fact that Princeton will be between 2 gas compressor stations. One that exists on the Princeton-Lawrence border, and one will be at Trap Rock Quarry. And I spoke with Angeli Ramos today. She's the executive director of the Sierra Club. She's a former New Jersey DEP research scientist. She is putting in comments, air quality permit comments that's still to be granted. And she told me today that the issue is that there's a deficiency in the application, and Williams Transco has not told the DEP what kind of toxic air emissions will occur during blowdowns, and that the DEP needs to know that to set limits on the number of blowdowns from the compressor station during the year, and if they don't do that, they'll have no way to limit them or enforce them. So I think that that's a very important thing for the municipality to do if this pipeline does go forward, and I've spoken with Mark about it, and Brian and Angeli will come talk to people on council, and I hope we can work on that in the next month. Angeli will be submitting comments. Kip's going to say a little bit more about that, but I do think it's an issue that we need to look at, and I thank you for considering this opposition to the pipeline. I think it's very important.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm representing the Sierra Club. I'm Kip Cherry. You all have this rough map that I've just handed out. I think it's really important to focus on this map because Princeton is not really what you think it is. That is, it is surrounded by the Millstone River and Carnegie Lake, and we think of ourselves as sort of isolated from the rest of the world, but the rest of the world is right outside. And so you can see on this rough map where the compressor 206 is going to be located on 518. And the big issue with the compressor is that it creates a lot of pollution. We're talking about benzene, we're talking about formaldehyde, toluene, xylene, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, and dioxide, all of which have major negative impacts on human health. Now, Princeton is actually within a mile, less than a mile of the compressor. The compressor produces a lot of pollutants. There are 3 ways that happen, or maybe 4 ways that happens. And the first is, and the first issue is that the application that was submitted to DEP is not complete. And so we are pushing very hard on that they need to take the time to do it, to require a complete application. Williams companies failed to analyze expected and worst-case scenarios. To begin, they do not evaluate worst-case emissions, but just routine operation after startup. So what happens with a compressor like this, there's a startup period of about 15 minutes, during which the technology doesn't function, burning off the emissions. So that's the first time that we take a hit. And they just ignored that. So there's a warm-up period and a warm-down period, during which there are emissions, very bad emissions. So no data was provided during startup or shutdown while the emissions control technology heats up to the optimal burn-off level or cools off. There's no data from maintenance blowdowns. Now, a maintenance blowdown is when you're actually cleaning out the pipe and removing solids and liquids that interfere with the operation of the system. And they just ignored that. And so we don't know how many blowdowns are expected. We don't know the period of the blowdowns, and we don't know the emissions that will come out of the compressor during the blowdowns. But there's a lot of emissions that come out during that period of time. Also, there are leaks. Leaks that are routine, leaks that maybe will relate to the fact that the trap rock folks are right next door.
Kip, you're going to be done soon?
Right. So, so I just want to make sure you're aware of all that. And if you do give testimony, all of this should be in your testimony. On the 13th of November, there is a hearing that DEP is putting on. We're all speaking at that hearing. And written comments can be made through the 24th of November. So I really think it's something that Princeton needs to worry about, frankly. And it also relates to modeling of wind. The wind generally seems to blow from west to east, which is good for us, but it also can blow the other way. So I think that people in Princeton never dreamed that there would be a facility of this caliber right outside our backyard.
Thank you, Kip.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments up here?
Yep.
Yes.
I just want to say, Kip, it's nice to see you in person. Thank you for coming out. And Alexi, thank you both for all you do to protect Princeton's environment. And it was disappointing that the news over the weekend, but I hope we can still advocate and let us know how we can help you. So.
Okay. All in favor of the resolution that we oppose the pipeline, please say aye.
Aye.
There we go.
Thank you.
At least we're doing it. Okay, next up, Resolution 25-375. Resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing an extended property tax grace period for eligible federal employees and federal contractors due to the federal government shutdown. Leticia's got the motion, Brian's got the second. Questions or comments? I would like to thank our CFO for bringing this to our attention so we could get it on the agenda in time. Michelle, I'm sorry, did you have your hand up?
I was just going to say thank you to whoever brought it forward. This is excellent.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't be necessary for too much longer, but we'll see what happens. Yeah. Thank
We
you.
will find out soon.
Soon enough.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Resolution 25376, resolution of the Mayor and Council of Princeton authorizing acceptance of grant funds from the state of New Jersey for the venison donation program and execution of agreement. Thank you, Brian. Layton's got the second. Questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Next up is the consent agenda, which are items of a very routine nature. There's 10 items there. Leticia, thank you so much, is moving them in block. No one objects to that. Brian's got the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Next up are public comments for items not on the agenda. If anybody in the room wants to come up and talk about anything that wasn't on the agenda, this would be the time to do it. Sure, come on up. It's the same rule, just say who you are. You got the 3 minutes. Hopefully the timer goes on. And
Great. Hello? And I guess I gather I don't need to sign in. I saw something about that. Andrea Malcolm, I'm a resident on Mount Lucas Road. And I just wanted to thank both the council and the engineering department for getting the Harrison Street bike lanes on. Noticed a lot of controversy about that in the, mostly on the social media. I'm worried that you're going to get a lot of pushback, and I'm also worried that the bike lanes are somehow going to become blamed for traffic concerns that have been in that area for a long time. I think it's really important to remember that, you know, that stretch of Harrison between outside the shopping center is 2 lanes, and when you've got 2 lanes, you've got traffic trying to take advantage and speeding up, and you know we need to get that back down to 1 lane. I see the word road diet, which many of us use, but it's probably good in communications just to tell people we're trying to make, you know, reduce the traffic speeds and speeding behavior to make it safer for walkers and bicyclists. And just to that point, the more outreach and education about this, the better. I've heard a lot of complaints where people are feeling somewhat blindsided, not understanding what to do, and very little sort of ongoing education about it. So I think that would be great. So again, thank you, and keep up the good work. Thanks.
thanks for the thanks. Is there anybody else in the room that has anything for public comments not on the agenda? Anybody on Zoom? Okay, there is a hand up. Yep. Sam?
Yes, good evening. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Sam, just introduce yourself for the minutes we get your name right.
Yeah, my name is Sam Bunting. I'm a resident at 99 Dempsey Avenue. I'm also a board member of our new Princeton nonprofit, Walk Bike Princeton. We work to make walking and cycling easier in Princeton. And we had a meeting just last week with our members at which we discussed the new buffered bike lanes on North Harrison Street. And several of our members were concerned about the bike lanes, that the implementation was not as perfect as it might have been, that there is confusion among a lot of motorists about how to handle the new bike lanes, and how to handle turns across the bike lanes, that the appearance of the bike lanes was rather sudden, perhaps lacking a little bit of signposting or information to alert passing drivers of the new traffic layout. So, you know, I think that there really was actually some concern, which was mixed in with the sense of satisfaction, which Andrea just talked about, that the town had actually managed to implement a large and significant project to add new bicycle facilities. So I think really where we see this is that, you know, there's clearly still work to be done. The project does not seem to be completely finished yet. We need to look at it. We need to learn what is working and what is not working. What makes cyclists feel safe, what makes drivers feel comfortable. So there is still work to be done. I am reading opposition and a sense of confusion from certain people on social media. So, and I can kind of understand that, because when I first drove down North Harrison Street and found that bike lane, I was rather surprised to find it, because there's no signs or anything about it. But since then, I've actually cycled it the bike lane several times with my son on our way to the elementary school soccer league over on Riverside Fields on Saturday mornings. And it does make it easier to cycle along that section of the road. So it is an improvement. So it's not perfect, but we shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We should look at what's working and try to make it better. Thanks.
Thank you, Sam. Adam, can we bring over the next person with their hand up? Carol?
Yes, hello, Carol Hollingsworth. I live on Heather Lane in Princeton. And I just want to thank you for implementing the bike lane improvements on Harrison Street. I agree with the other speakers. This is an important part of our bicycle network and part of Vision Zero and the Climate Action Plan also. So it serves a lot of functions. It also makes the road safer for drivers as well. And I think I do appreciate that electronic sign went up. I think that was really helpful. I think it was a little bit of a surprise at first, but I just think it'll be very important to study this and how it's used and learn what we can from it and hopefully move forward with even more improvements. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other hands up and nobody here in the room jumping up, we'll close that section of the meeting. And that is the last thing on our agenda. David, do you want to?
I would be happy to move to adjourn.
There we go. Michelle's got the second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are done. Thank you all for being here. Have a great night. That was good.